The news broke in a way that no one could have anticipated. Jungkook, the youngest member of BTS, arrived at a Los Angeles hospital late at night, and within minutes, doctors delivered a revelation so shocking that even the staff appeared visibly unsettled. What could have been so urgent that Jungkook rushed to the facility without prior notice? And why did the medical team disclose details that left the entire corridor frozen in silence? The sight of Jungkook entering the hospital was already enough to trigger a wave of speculation. Dressed in a plain outfit and accompanied by only a few close aides, he avoided cameras but could not escape the eyes of those present. Witnesses described the moment as tense, with Jungkook moving quickly through the emergency entrance, his face showing signs of exhaustion and emotional strain. Questions spread instantly. Was this about his own health, or was he there for someone else? The tension escalated when medical staff were seen guiding Jungkook directly to a restricted area, bypassing all routine check-in procedures. Normally, even celebrities are expected to wait for clearance, but in this case, the urgency was unmistakable. What happened inside that closed ward was soon whispered among those who managed to glimpse fragments of the situation. Doctors disclosed findings about Jin, and the gravity of their words reportedly left Jungkook shaken. The reveal was not an ordinary medical update. According to sources within the hospital, the doctors explained a condition that had been quietly monitored but only recently reached a critical point. The shocking element was not simply the diagnosis itself, but the implication it carried, something that could alter schedules, commitments, and even the perception of how much strain the human body can endure under constant pressure. Jungkook's immediate reaction, witnesses said, was disbelief followed by visible distress as he pressed for every possible detail from the team in charge. Observers outside the ward noted that Jungkook spent a long time speaking privately with the doctors. His posture reflected a mixture of urgency and anxiety, with moments where he was seen pacing, hands clenched tightly, as if trying to process the gravity of what was being explained. The hospital corridor fell silent. The weight of the situation was felt even by those who had no full understanding of what was being said. Why was Jungkook the one receiving this information directly? The answer seems clear. His bond with Jin extends beyond the stage, and it has often been Jungkook who responds first in moments of vulnerability. His presence at the hospital was not coincidental. It was a deliberate move, driven by both personal concern and the need to hear the truth without delay. Yet the truth itself was far from comforting. Doctors reportedly used the word complications, a term that immediately unsettled those who overheard it. Complications suggest unpredictability, a lack of control, and outcomes that cannot be neatly defined. For someone like Jungkook, accustomed to precision, discipline, and stability in both art and life, the uncertainty struck deeply. The shocking reveal carried not only medical implications, but also emotional weight that would inevitably ripple beyond the hospital walls. In the hours that followed, speculation spread quickly among fans and media outlets stationed outside. Why had Jungkook come in the dead of night? Why were the doctor's words described as alarming by those present? And most importantly, what did this mean for Jin, who had already been the subject of public concern in recent weeks? The questions multiplied, but the answers remained locked behind the closed doors of the hospital. Inside, Jungkook remained close to the medical team, reportedly requesting updates and clarification at every step. His determination to understand every technical term, every possible scenario, revealed not only his deep worry, but also his instinctive role as protector. He did not allow himself the luxury of breaking down. Instead, he absorbed the information like a shield, determined to process the shock before letting anyone else carry its weight. The revelation, according to insiders, was framed in stark medical language, a diagnosis that carried risks if not managed with precision and constant oversight. It was not an immediate life-threatening emergency, but the warning was clear. Without proper attention, the condition could escalate unpredictably. This, perhaps, was the most shocking aspect. The realization that what had seemed manageable from the outside had already progressed further than most people imagined. Jungkook's emotional response did not go unnoticed. Staff members described him as visibly fighting back tears, pressing his hand to his forehead as if to steady himself. At one point, he reportedly excused himself from the ward, stepping into the corridor to gather his composure before returning inside. The weight of being the first to hear the truth was immense, and yet he shouldered it without hesitation. Why was the reveal described as shocking? Because it disrupted the assumption that all was under control. It shattered the illusion of stability and forced those involved, especially Jungkook, to confront the fragility of health under relentless schedules. The doctor's words were not casual, they were a wake-up call. For Jungkook, the realization was deeply personal. He has often spoken of Jin as both a brother and mentor, and the possibility of watching him struggle with medical complications was a thought almost unbearable to process. As the night wore on, Jungkook stayed at the hospital, refusing to leave until he had assurances about the immediate steps being taken. He requested detailed explanations about treatment options, preventive measures, and the timeline of recovery. His insistence reflected both his loyalty and his desperation to find certainty in a situation defined by uncertainty. Meanwhile, whispers continued to circulate among those outside the hospital, with fans piecing together fragments of information from witnesses. Some described the mood as heavy, others as heartbreaking. The fact that Jungkook himself had arrived, rather than waiting for official updates, only underscored the severity of the moment. It was not the action of someone casually checking in, it was the move of someone who knew that time and presence mattered. By dawn, the shocking reveal remained known only to a limited circle, but its impact was already undeniable. Jungkook's late-night arrival, the doctor's urgent disclosure, and the emotional weight of his reaction painted a picture that no statement could soften. The situation was real, immediate, and deeply unsettling for ARMY around the world. The questions remained sharp. What exactly did the doctors reveal to Jungkook? How serious is the condition, and what does this mean for Jin's future activities? Why was the disclosure framed with such urgency, and how will it affect both the group and the individuals at its heart? What is certain is that Jungkook's presence at the hospital was not just symbolic, it was pivotal. He became the first to hear the shocking truth, the first to carry its weight, and the first to respond not with panic, but with determination to stand by Jin through the uncertainty. The doctors may have made the reveal, but Jungkook's reaction ensured that it would not remain just a sterile medical report. It became a moment of human gravity, one that resonated far beyond the walls of the hospital. As the news continues to circulate, one fact remains undeniable. Something significant unfolded within that Los Angeles hospital, and Jungkook was at the center of it. The shocking reveal delivered by doctors was not just about health. It was about fragility, resilience, and the burden of truth carried by those who care the most. The hospital lights in Los Angeles glowed with unusual intensity that night, as if mirroring the weight of what was unfolding inside. Jungkook's arrival had already stirred confusion, but it was the doctor's revelation that turned speculation into shock. Behind the sealed doors of the consultation room, words were spoken that would alter the mood not only for Jungkook, but also for everyone waiting to understand what had brought him there so suddenly. Medical staff described the situation as sensitive, a term chosen carefully to indicate both urgency and confidentiality. Jungkook, who had entered the hospital visibly tense, was immediately taken aside by senior physicians. Within minutes, the reveal was delivered, and those who overheard fragments spoke of a diagnosis that carried consequences far beyond what most had expected. The information was clinical, precise, and unsettling. It left Jungkook momentarily motionless, as though trying to anchor himself in a room that suddenly felt unbearably heavy. The shock lay not only in the medical terms themselves, but in their implications. Doctors made clear that what they had detected was not superficial, nor something that could be brushed aside with routine rest. It required attention, management, and above all, acceptance that the situation was more complicated than previously assumed. For Jungkook, who had always seen Jin as a figure of strength, the realization was devastating. His response was described as one of controlled desperation, pressing for answers, seeking clarity, refusing to accept vague reassurances. Witnesses later recounted that Jungkook's voice carried through the hallway as he insisted on knowing every possible detail. He asked about risks, about potential setbacks, about the reality behind the carefully chosen words. The doctors, while measured in their explanations, did not soften the truth. They told him directly, complications had developed, and while the condition was not yet beyond control, it demanded a level of caution and monitoring that could not be ignored. The reveal was shocking precisely because it dismantled the illusion of stability. Fans had assumed recovery, resilience, and normalcy, but the doctor's words painted a different picture. It was a reminder of the fragility hidden beneath the surface of relentless schedules and public expectations. Jungkook, hearing this, reacted with visible struggle. Those present noted moments where he seemed on the verge of breaking down, his shoulders tensed, his gaze fixed downward, as if unwilling to let anyone witness the full extent of his turmoil. Time in that hospital room felt distorted. Every second stretched into a test of composure. Jungkook continued to question, to demand concrete steps, to ensure no detail was overlooked. His determination was clear. He would not leave without knowing exactly what was being done to protect Jin. The doctors, though calm, acknowledged the seriousness. Their reveal was not intended to alarm but to prepare, and in that preparation lay the unsettling truth that things might not return to normal as quickly as hoped. The corridors outside the ward grew tense with whispers. Staff members exchanged glances, aware that something beyond routine care was being discussed inside. A nurse was overheard saying that the doctors had used the phrase immediate monitoring, words that only heightened the sense of urgency. Jungkook, meanwhile, remained inside, absorbing every explanation with a mixture of fear and fierce resolve. What stunned those who caught glimpses of the scene was the raw humanity of Jungkook's reaction. This was not the global superstar addressing a clinical matter. It was a younger brother figure, confronted with the vulnerability of someone he deeply cared for. His silence at certain moments spoke louder than words, and when he finally stepped out briefly to gather himself, the expression on his face was one of shock barely concealed beneath composure. The doctor's reveal shattered assumptions. It was no longer a matter of rumors or speculation. It was a reality defined by medical evidence. And that reality carried weight, not just for Jin but for Jungkook, who now bore the burden of knowing before the wider world. The pressure of holding such knowledge, of processing its implications, was a responsibility that left him visibly drained yet determined. As dawn approached, Jungkook remained by Jin's side. He refused to leave, insisting on updates, asking to be present for follow-up checks, and making sure that no precaution was overlooked. The doctors, recognizing his determination, allowed him limited access while continuing their evaluations. What they revealed that night would not be forgotten. It marked a turning point in how the situation would be perceived from that moment forward. For the fans, the questions only grow sharper. What exactly did the doctors disclose? How severe are the complications? And most importantly, what will this mean for Jin's ability to continue under the demands placed upon him? The shocking reveal has not yet been made public in detail, but the gravity of Jungkook's response tells its own story. Something significant, something unsettling, was spoken within those walls. Point one fact is undeniable. Jungkook's arrival at the Los Angeles hospital was not simply an act of concern. It was a moment that placed him directly at the center of a truth too heavy to ignore. The doctors delivered a reveal that stripped away illusions, leaving only the stark reality of human vulnerability. Jungkook, shaken but resolute, now carries that truth with him. And as the world waits for answers, the weight of the night in Los Angeles lingers, a reminder that behind the stage lights and global acclaim lies a battle far more personal, fragile, and real.